Good afternoon, everybody. Well, it's day 18 of the federal government shutdown, something like that.
Yes.
But guess what?
It's day one of the political reporter life shutdown here in Austin.
Yeah, Ben Philpott just back from the state capitol on day one of the 86th Texas legislative session. He came in with his lunch.
Yes.
It's the first time you've gotten to eat today, right?
Yes, although, as PolitiFact would say, I could probably go another few hours without eating.
Okay, so we just want to give you a lowdown. We're back after the holidays, and this is what we love because the legislature's back in session, and there's all kinds of things to talk about.
There are. Yeah, I mean, the session started. We've got 181 lawmakers, plus the governor, lieutenant governor, and various sundry other statewide people here.
140 days ahead.
140 days ahead.
Lots of numbers. 86th legislature.
Yes. 86th legislature, new speaker, one new speaker. There's
okay,
another
so
number.
That's the big news of today. So let's talk about Dennis.
I would have
Bonnen.
1 and 1A, but we'll start with 1.
Okay,
there's a 1A. But
okay, so let's talk about number one, the big order of business today. You know, Joe Strauss stepped aside, retired, and we have a brand new Texas House Speaker. Tell us about Dennis Bonnen.
Dennis Bonnen has been in the House for 25 years. He's been elected 12 times to the House out of Angleton, which is a suburban-esque area
South
around
of Houston.
Yeah. So he went to college here in Austin, not UT. He went to St. Ed's and is a bank CEO back in Angleton. He's been, for the last previous three sessions, he was the Speaker Pro Tem.
So kind of the number two guy.
Kind of the number two under Strauss. So clearly a supporter of Strauss on many of the things that Strauss was trying to do in the House. You may remember that Speaker Strauss was not loved by some Republicans, especially the much more far-right conservative members like the Texas Freedom Caucus, which is about a dozen really kind of more far-right lawmakers. Dennis Bonnen did not agree with the Speaker on everything, but definitely they were part of the team. He was part of Strauss's team. When Strauss announced his retirement, which was last October 2017, pretty quickly you had people throwing their hats in the ring saying, I want to run, I want to run.
And one of them was not Bonnen, was it?
No, Bonnen did not announce he was running for Speaker until just a few days over the one-year anniversary of Speaker Strauss announcing he wasn't going to be it. So you had October 2017, Strauss says he's retiring. All these people jump in pretty quickly. October 2018, Bonnen says, I'm running. And 2 weeks after that, a little less than 2 weeks after that, he announces that he has the votes and the race is over.
He shows up all the votes.
Says it's over, done.
And speaking of votes, I saw that it was unanimous. No votes against him today. So the Democrats must see him as someone who's willing to reach across the aisle.
I think they do. So in kind of the ceremony of picking a speaker, you have a nominating speech. You then have, I believe it's up to 5 or 6 seconding speeches, seconding the nomination. And maybe it's 5. So I'm trying to think, because they evened it out Democrat, Republican, but they started with a Republican and then went down the line. So anyway, you had it was a bipartisan nomination, is what I'm trying to say. Bipartisan nomination, bipartisan unanimous vote, but you see that a lot in pretty much every speaker's race. Every now and then you will have groups on the fringe of either party deciding, no, I can't vote for this candidate because they don't, they're not going. I know they're not going to let me do the things that I want to do. But the kind of the not dirty little secret, but kind of the way the House works is if you're going to vote against the Speaker, you can kiss the idea of getting a chairmanship goodbye.
You're not going to be heading one of the important committees and getting most of your bills heard if you vote against him.
I mean,
or her,
speakers would say, the different speakers would say, oh, of course not. What are you, crazy, Judy? Why would you even say that? But it's kind of true. And so you see a whole lot of kumbaya at the beginning of a session. Pretty much every legislative session in Texas, no matter which party is in power.
Sure.
You see a little bit of that kumbaya at the beginning, and that's what we saw today. But I do feel like there are enough Democrats that do feel like this is someone who will, at the very least, give them a straight answer and a straight shot at stuff. And maybe that straight answer is, no, that bill's never going to come up. But it's not going to be. There's not going to be games played. There's not going to be, well, oh yeah, sure, next week we'll bring the bill up. Well, Dennis Bonnen.
That's not his style.
No, he's very direct in his approach, very polite. There was a joke made today during one of the speeches that with all due respect is his favorite phrase, although he will sometimes be screaming it at other lawmakers. With all due respect, But he very much does believe in treating people honestly and straightforwardly. So yeah, I mean, Democrats.
That's refreshing because not all politicians do that.
No, I mean, Democrats and Republicans may come up to him and say, "Boy, I'd really like this bill passed," and he's going to look at him and say, "Nope,
nope, not a chance."
Not a chance. But they'll know exactly where they stand.
But he says that public school finance and property taxes are his top priorities, and let's face it, public school finance seems to be most everyone's top priority this session. We've got to fix this thing.
The governor gave a quick speech in both the House and Senate chamber today, and said, in both of those, that property taxes and school finance were the top things, and that they were finally going to get done in this session. I don't know that you should ever use the word "finally" when talking about school finance, and maybe he just said it was going to get done.
That we've said this session we're going to get it done, but I think they really will this session.
And you can't do one without the other. I mean,
they're so intertwined.
Yes, because the local school property taxes take up such a gigantic chunk of your property taxes. Absolutely. And it's really the only one we can't have a state property tax. That's unconstitutional. We can't have a state income tax. We can't have a state property tax. Both unconstitutional. So the only way that the state can say we're going to lower your property taxes is if they do something to help pay for one of those tax items that you have. So the state could say, we're going to give X amount more money to all the cities in Texas.
And you get a break on your city taxes.
Then your city taxes might be lower. But that's a big mess. So the easier way and the more politically palatable way is to say, we're going to increase state funding in our public schools, and that will provide the opportunity for districts to lower their local school property taxes.
Because recapture, the current system just is not working.
No, I mean, here in Austin, they're talking about cutting, $50–60 million from
out of their budget.
The school budget, while at the same time the district is sending, I think it's over $400 million back to the state. Now, that's going to pay for districts that could never raise the kind of money that you need to adequately, and this is a court definition, adequately educate a child in the state of Texas. So there's a good reason why the money's leaving, but it is essentially meaning that despite the fact that the city is raising hundreds of millions more than it's actually spending, they're having to cut their budget.
So I want to go over on the Senate side now, because obviously Dennis Bonnen is the most powerful person on the House side, Dan Patrick the most powerful person as Lieutenant Governor on the Senate side. Yep. He wasn't there today.
He wasn't. That was 1A.
That was 1A.
Bonnen won 1A. Patrick wasn't there. Patrick was, we were told, at the White House.
Because the president's going to be speaking about border security and
because the president is going to be speaking about border security tonight. He's going to be making a trip to the border on Thursday, right? and as it was relayed to the people in the Senate today, when the White House calls, you say okay, and you go. And so the White House called and said, Dan Patrick, we would like to talk to you about
And he's been a supporter of President Trump, too.
Yes, he was one of the early supporters of President Trump in the state of Texas, and has been a vocal supporter on different TV programs, always quick to jump on Fox News and talk about something positive about the president. And what we know about this president is that he appreciates loyalty and people who are willing to say nice things about him. And that's what Dan Patrick has done. So
he wasn't at Capitol's Day.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Somebody said, well, doesn't he have to be there? I said, well, he doesn't actually get inaugurated until a couple weeks from now when we have the governor and lieutenant governor and all the other statewides that get inaugurated. So there was no swearing in for him today. Definitely not.
Just the other Texas senators.
Texas senators and the state
house.
And
the state house members.
So, in terms of business getting done, he didn't need to be here. But I did think it was interesting, and we'll see if it matters at all, or if it's just kind of political intrigue. Why was it Dan Patrick? Why was it not Governor Greg Abbott?
That's an interesting question.
The governor may have said, governor may have been his first pick for all we know. Again, this is all speculation. Okay. Governor may have said, all right, my state legislature is starting. I appreciate this, Mr. President, but I'm not going to be outside of my state on the first day of the legislative session.
All right.
We don't know. Who knows what the
Maybe we will at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to, because a lot of people go, the legislature's in session. What does it mean to me? Let's do a little, let's do the Legislature 101. First of all, let's talk about what happens in the early days. So people have been filing bills before the session starts. How do those bills actually make it to the floor so people can vote on them to become law?
Do you remember I'm Just a Bill?
I'm Just a Bill.
Yes, I'm only a bill. So you're singing
Schoolhouse
all the
Rock.
words wrong. But anyway, that's okay. If you go look at that video, honestly, if you're watching us, just Google Schoolhouse Rock, I'm Just a Bill, and watch that video.
But that's for national bills, but it's still the same process.
That's for Congress, U.S. Congress, but it's about 90% right when you lay it down on the Texas model. The bills are, and the easiest way to do this is start in the Texas House. A bill gets filed in the House. The Speaker of the House sends it to one of the committees. The committee holds a hearing. The committee passes the bill and sends it out of committee, or it doesn't, and the bill dies. The bill then goes to, this is where the big difference is, the bill goes to the Calendars Committee in the House, which the Calendars Committee...
That's an important committee.
It is very important. It sets the daily agendas in the House. The House runs by agendas. You have to be on that agenda to have your bill come up. And there are some extraordinary ways to get a bill to come up to the floor, but 99.9% of the time you have to be on that agenda to get a bill to the floor. So if your bill passes out of committee and goes to the Calendars Committee, but the Calendars Committee doesn't put it on an agenda, it's just as good as dead. Once the Calendars Committee puts it on the agenda, then it comes up to the floor for debate and vote. If it passes, you wait 24 hours. It comes up a third time actually by that point, because the first time is when it gets submitted to committees. Comes up for third reading, passes, it heads out of the chamber to the Senate. Whole process starts over again. If the bills are different when they come out of the House and Senate, you have to do a conference committee, which gets together. Sometimes these conference committees last all of 5 minutes. Sometimes they last, like especially when we're talking about the state budget, they will last for a month. Once the committee reconciles the bills, they go back to the House and Senate separately for one up or down vote. And if they agree with the changes, then the bill heads on to the governor's desk. The governor can veto it, and the legislature really has no ability to override the veto. Yes, we have the same thing, 2/3 vote can override a veto, but the governor does this really clever thing where he doesn't veto a bill until after the legislative session is over.
And then usually quite a few get vetoed.
And once the session's over, the governor is the only person who has the ability to call a special session to bring them back in, and is the only person that can set the agenda for the special session. So the governor vetoes a bill. You want to get it overridden? You could convince the governor to call a special session and to put having a vote to override my veto on the agenda. But why would any governor do that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, when we saw there were several action items that the governors called back for special session last time around 2 years ago. Okay, I know we don't have a lot of time.
Sorry, long-winded, but it's all fairly important.
Couple of things. I've read I've talked to a few of the legislators from the Austin area. All of them seem a little more upbeat about this particular session. I think some of them felt a little bit hamstrung last time around because most of them are progressive, and some of the issues like the bathroom bill were just like, no way. But I think that they feel a little more positive. Do you think that there's going to be more of there's more Democrats, first of all, in the mix. Do you think there are going to be more compromise, more issues that are compromised? Do you think that perhaps school funding has a better shot because of this?
I think school funding does have a better shot, and we got the reason for that when the comptroller earlier this week said that there's actually additional
extra money.
Yeah,
not extra, but like
5 or 6 billion or 8 billion more.
I think it's 8% more. Something like that.
So there's more money which you're going to need if you're going to try to drive down local property tax rates by paying for more state funding to go to public schools. So I think that helped it. I think that, yes, you have the Speaker of the House who absolutely was for it when Joe Strauss tried it. The big question mark is kind of what does the Senate want to do with school finance? last session, the Senate said, yes, we're all for school finance. We just don't want to spend as much money, and we want to create vouchers, school vouchers. And the House is just like, well, we're not ever going to pass vouchers, so it's all dead. Thank you very much.
And nothing had gotten,
and nothing happened.
Accomplished.
Each chamber passed their own version of the bill, and that was that.
Dug in their heels.
Because the House just doesn't have any way to pass a voucher. There's not the votes to pass a voucher bill in the House. So I think, the first day of the session is the rose-colored glasses. Everybody's happy and happy to be there. But it does feel like this is a session that will be focused on the actual functioning business of the state, taxes, schools, business climate, healthcare even.
That's a big one.
It feels like that's going to be the focus this session, and not, border security. They passed the Sanctuary Cities bill. They got pretty much what Republicans.
SB 4 passed just as they wanted it to.
So I don't know exactly what they would necessarily try to pass this session that is also focused on immigration.
And it's so much more a national issue anyway. So.
Oh yeah, the state can't. Yeah. And then bathroom bill does not appear to be something that at least publicly is on the radar of the lieutenant governor this time, even though he was the huge champion of it last time. This is the bill that would restrict bathroom access for people, for transgender people in public restrooms. The lieutenant governor was, he was the champion of it last time. He's not talked about it this time. Doesn't mean that it won't be, it doesn't mean that it won't happen, but it doesn't look like it's a huge priority, at least not a public one right now.
Final question from a local perspective. There's always been this
anti-Austin.
Yes, I was trying to say it politically correct, but the Texas legislature and Austin don't see eye to eye a lot of the time.
Yep.
Are there some things that I know that the sick leave policy and some other things that's actually tied up in court now, but do we see more of the so-called Austin bashing ahead?
I think that it's going to be hard to get, especially the legislature has kind of planted its flag, this current Republican-led legislature has planted its flag into the idea of local control unless we think that local control is damaging it. Unless we don't like that local control. That's maybe the best way to say it.
That's the more honest way to say it.
That's the more honest way to say it.
Pass those things, but if we don't like it,
right. And so, you saw that last session with the Uber and Lyft ordinance.
And the plastic bag ban?
And no, that bill didn't pass. It was struck down by the courts.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But so, for Uber, Lyft, City of Austin passes its ordinance. Uber and Lyft say it sucks, we're leaving town. The state legislature goes in and writes a law that overrides any local ordinances on
it's state regulations
ride-hailing apps.
Ride-hailing.
And so we'll see that. There will be some of that. There is even though it's tied up in court, we could see them trying to pass one to keep cities like Austin and San Antonio that have passed them from doing the paid sick leave. Also block the box, which is saying
if someone is
laying out regulations. They're laying out, the city of Austin essentially laid out a regulation saying this is the point in the job process when you are allowed to consider whether this person is a felon or not.
Not the initial.
But it's not the initial. It's much further down the line in the interview process. Can an employer ask about that? It's not right up front, first thing you check when you're filling out your form. And there are some lawmakers who think that that's wrong and would like to change it so that to make it a state regulation that yes, you have to keep that I'm a felon box there on your application. So we'll see those things coming up.
Anything else that the average Central Texan should be thinking about, and why they should pay attention to the legislature, other than the fact that
sure, Central Texans. I ran into a pro-pot group today. I was down at the Capitol at the very first press conference I went to, which was which was done by a Latino education group on Latino Hispanic priorities for the session.
Right.
And standing off on the side, not a part of this press conference, but standing down away from the Capitol was a group of release the weed or free the weed or something.
Legalize weed.
And there are in the Republican Party platform, they added language about medicinal marijuana. In the Republican Party platform, which was passed by Republicans, by the most Republican of Republicans, the Republican delegates at a state convention. They said, yeah, that's okay. So,
So there's that.
So there's that. So this is this is not just a fringe issue that, hippie Democrats want to pass.
Well,
no
other
offense,
states have had
no
some
offense to
success
Elliot
with it.
Neistat, but that was one of his bills that he always filed was on medicinal marijuana or even just legalizing marijuana. So that is something that we'll see, but I'm not necessarily looking at it. But it was just interesting that kind of buoyed by the Republican convention saying it's okay. I think you're going to see some publicity on that this session. But beyond that, really, I'm just looking at, school finance is the big thing.
It affects so many people in so many different ways, whether you have a child in school, whether you own a home. I mean, all of these things are education is so important.
And we're just, will the legislature be able to, not have kumbaya throughout the entire session, but stay focused and stay on kind of the real business of the state long enough to get something like that done? Or will we get bogged down with constitutional carry or immigration or bathrooms and stuff like that?
And maybe perhaps find more common ground this time around that we didn't find a lot of common ground in 2017.
There's a whole lot of common ground on schools and school finance, especially after the Republicans were told pretty clearly by those suburbanites that they did not think enough stuff was getting done.
Okay. Well, it's going to be an interesting session. We are normally here every Tuesday at 12:30. We may be heading over to the Capitol to do something.
I was watching Dennis Bonnen get voted
at 12:30 today.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we could have gone live from the House chamber, we would have. But
we would have had to been whispering the whole time.
Yes, I know. That would have been a little awkward. But we'll be here every Tuesday at 12:30 during the session, and we hope you'll tune in. If you have some questions,
send us.
Yeah,
please.
send us some questions about what you're concerned about. If you want to go down and testify, we can tell you exactly what you need to do to make that happen.
Yeah, we actually should do that maybe in the next month. Do a what are the different ways you can make your voice heard down at the Capitol?
Because these people they are elected to serve you.
Yes.
And you put them in there, and so we want to make sure they're doing the job that you sent them there to do. All right, Ben Philpott, you can eat the rest of your lunch now.
It's
Mr.
over here
Philpott.
sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
I'll eat it. Yeah.
Thank you for rushing over from the Capitol and from KUT to fill us in on the first day of the session.
First day.
And
now we just wait for 59 more days until you can pass a bill. State law, 59 more days.
Now I've got the earworm of I'm just a bill up on Capitol Hill. Thanks so much.
Think about Conjunction Junction.
Conjunction Junction. We will not be singing those for you next week. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit of your afternoon with us, and we'll be back here next Tuesday at 12:30, our regular time for Capitol Coffee Talk. Make it a great evening out there.